Hello and welcome to Functionally Fit with Jenn Rice. I am really just delighted to have today's guest. Before we dive into today's topic, I just want to mention that with this podcast, we are very reliant on listener support. So if you are listening to this and you like what we're putting out, please consider subscribing wherever you're listening. And it really does help us to hear feedback. So with a lot of the platforms, you can actually send a message. So if you hear something from our guest or from me, or you would like more information on something in particular, you can actually shoot us a message or give us a voice message through there. And we just appreciate feedback so we know that you're getting what you'd like to hear and getting your questions answered too. So today we're tackling a subject that is, I think there's never been a more important time to learn more about this, because chronic disease is becoming more and more apparent. And this is globally. This is not just a United States problem. It's a global problem. And unfortunately, a lot of medical systems are just not set up to deal with chronic smoldering illnesses that don't really have you take this medicine and it goes away, or you take this thing or you do that procedure and it's just gone. When you have something that waxes and wanes, that comes and goes, that is sometimes very disabling, sometimes it seems okay, we don't really know how to handle that in modern medicine. So my guest today, I am so thankful for you to be here. It's Anindita Rungta, and she is a functional medicine certified health coach. And she is also an author of a book called I Have Eczema, So What? So anyone who has listened to the podcast before knows that I have a background in dermatology as a physician assistant. So anything that can help patients with these smoldering conditions like eczema and psoriasis, I am all ears. She also is launching a podcast that will be focused really deeply on autoimmune. So if you like this content, you'll want to, we'll keep you tuned in the comment section, but in December, she'll be launching her own podcast, which I'm going to be excited to listen to as well. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and excited too.
Excellent. So yeah, if you could just kick us off, we'll kind of dive right in on when I was doing a little reading about you and your background, you had been in like the financial services and sales background. And I would love to know if there was something that personally drove you to like this switch, or if you could elaborate on that for us, I think it'd be really helpful.
Yes, actually, it was a health crisis in my family, specifically with regards to my daughter. As you mentioned, I was in the financial services sales corporate world for 10 years. And I have two kids. So my daughter was about 7 at that time, and she had eczema since she was 1. Which is why there's a book about eczema, and I'll get to that. But so that sort of became, sort of went out of control to the point that we reached a stage where she was on immunosuppressive medication and for a number of years. And as a side effect of one of the drugs, she was admitted in the hospital with a life-threatening infection. And that was the lowest point of our lives. And that was also the turning point. She recovered. We were lucky. So she pulled through, she came back home. And this was in 2013. So she basically celebrated her 7th birthday in the hospital, ICU. She came back home, and I sort of vowed that I would find a way, and there had to be a better way, because till that point, I had relied completely on the medical care system. And we had amazing doctors, but I had to find some other better solution. And it took me a year of research, the whole of 2014. I was trying to figure out what else could help her. And of course, I come from a country where we talk about, we have a history of Ayurveda, but unfortunately, I think somewhere, not many of us are practicing it for many different reasons. And functional medicine, I stumbled across in 2014, took her to UK again, took her to UK for her functional medicine treatment. And she got off all medications. in a couple of years, and sort of eczema basically healed, and all we had to do was heal her gut, which is a long journey, as you would know, Jen. I mean, and that's how it was. And in the middle of doing all of that, I figured out, this is something that many people are grappling with. We've been through all the changes that we had to make in terms of diet, lifestyle, stress, and living with a chronic condition. Whether it's eczema, whether it's an autoimmune condition or anything severe like that, it's really hard. It's really, really hard, even when you know how to do all that. That's what led me to functional medicine health coaching. And I joined FMC and I became certified in 2017. That's how my journey began.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm sorry that your daughter went through all that, because I do know that it's an up and down, round and round process with skin conditions, especially for children. A lot of the medications that, for example, steroids can stunt growth and cause all sorts of, issues like that too. But they can also, cause permanent skin changes as well. And so did you find that there was a diet component or a food that was driving it too, or just all certain foods? Like, was she a celiac or no?
No, she's not celiac, but I think initially, so I think there's a combination of things, and there probably was a trigger I'm not sure, but in 2011 or so, when her skin started worsening, because she had that condition since she was 1. And which is from 2007. But, I never knew any better. I didn't know that there were diet or food had anything to do with her skin, right? Nobody tells you all this.
Right.
And I think by the time 2011 came around, there was probably some kind of trigger, because she was having everything, right? At the time, there is gluten, dairy, and I think she was off dairy for a couple of years. It did help, but 2011 onwards, it's sort of worsening, which is why she was put on immunosuppressive medication. And she happened to be that 1 in a million person who had that drug side effect. So it was unfortunate. That's how it happened, actually. Yeah, but and eventually I figured out that diet has everything to do with chronic condition.
Yes.
Your gut has everything to do with the chronic condition.
Right.
I learned that the hard way.
I know. Yes, me too. But I know watching a child go through it is, we'd always rather take the place of that. But when so then you kind of are now bit by the bug and know that it helped your daughter so much, and it's also helping you and the rest of your family, because you all made changes. And then what made you decide to write a book, and what is the book about?
So this was actually her dermatologist's idea, because they saw the journey that we'd been through and how we'd managed eczema, not only from a physical point of view, of course, but as a family together. So, we all came together and we made the changes together. So there was a long journey. So she's the one who encouraged me to write a book. So it's a book, it's an illustrated book. It's for children, actually. So it's for young children.
Great.
So, and it's not so much, because there's a lot of information about eczema, but I don't think there's enough about how to actually live with it. Right. Okay, in a way where the family comes together with love and support and compassion, and when they're people. So it's actually about a family. So the characters are because my daughter, I have a younger son. So there is one girl who's 9-year-old. She was around 9 at that time, and a younger brother who stands up for her. Then her parents, her grandparents, they all come together and support her. So it's more about that, because you can actually substitute eczema for any chronic condition that a child has, because you're struggling with it day in and day out. So that's actually, the book is, I think, more about that, more about overcoming this.
That's really, but how wonderful. That is such a great resource for, I think, parents, and definitely one that I'll keep in mind too, because I think that having children also take an active role versus just, we got to put on this cream again, and it's a fight and all of that. I think that can be, it can, and skin problems are visual. So it's not unlike some other conditions that you can't see. The skin problems are always apparent, right? Yeah. They don't hide. You can't hide them. The same would be, you're right, with acne, severe acne. I know that is so psychologically impactful for children too, but deeply also rooted some in gut health. So we know that the better our gut health is, the better your skin will be too.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when you're working with clients now and doing this autoimmune, is there a particular, I know some people tend to specialize on thyroid versus adrenal versus diabetes, or do you just kind of feel like everything's connected and you do all of those, or are you more specialized?
No, actually, when I started, I was doing a whole lot of stuff because I was just starting off with my coaching. I have a solo coaching practice, but now coming back to your question, I think autoimmune healing, when you're trying to figure it out and find and address the root cause, the foundation is pretty much the same. So I haven't specialized. I've consciously not specialized in a particular kind of diagnosis. Rather, I actually incorporate a whole lot of it's mind-body approach. So of
Yes.
course, functional medicine is all about whether it's your diet, etc. But what I find, especially because I work with women, and of course, being a woman myself, I know, a lot of what are the other things. So like, for example, self-care, we put ourselves at the bottom of our list, right? So all of that, stress management, mindfulness. So I actually put in a lot of that into my coaching as well. And I think that goes beyond any diagnosis that you can think of. So while I focus on autoimmune, because I find that especially in my country, not too many people who can help, people who are going through an autoimmune diagnosis. That's why I've chose to focus on this. And because I have personal experience of dealing with gut health. So I don't specialize in a particular autoimmune diagnosis, but it's all about the gut, 5-stage gut repair system. It's about hormonal balance. It's about immune dysfunction, dysregulation. So we work on that. So I go through a 6-stage journey actually with my clients. So I take them through a 6-stage journey to help them with that.
I love this too, because I think sometimes this might be a very American statement as far as, you can feel like you're the only, the female problems that are happening here aren't happening anywhere else. Like you have this sort of bubble mentality where you don't even really think of women all over the world potentially being like there's someone somewhere else walking the same path I am, or having like the same type of struggle, because we do get very central focused and inwardly focused. And I would love for you to share a little bit about just women's view on health there in your country, and how similar potentially we all are, because I do think there can be sometimes a disconnect. And with the globalization of things and the connectability, I'm super excited about how women can help each other in this health area to just completely excel and break through a lot of the things that have held us back in our health. And the excessive weight gain that we experience here. And yes. I don't know, do you have an obesity issue in your country, or not?
We have a right, not as much, because I think primarily our food is by and large still home cooked.
Okay.
So we don't focus. I mean, we, of course, it's a lot of unfortunate, a lot of the Western culture, which is not so good part of it, has also come in, which is a part of globalization.
Sure.
So not so much, but it is more of an urban phenomenon. So most in the cities, you will get some rising obesity, especially in kids, which is alarming.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But not as bad as it is in some of the Western countries. And to answer your question, I was surprised by this, because even I had a notion from my living in my country that we have problems which are typical to maybe Indians or South Asians or Asians. And when I did my FMCA training, and then I was connecting with coaches across the globe, many of whom are women. I'm doing my second level of certification from the School of Applied Functional Medicine. Again, many women. Then I've joined multiple, the mastermind that we were both in. So now I'm connected with many women globally over the last 7-8 years, and I have found that it's actually the same. Women everywhere have this, similar issues. And I used to think that may not be true earlier, but I've changed my mind since then, because I think whoever I speak to, and I have some coaches that are good friends of mine, and we've been friends since 2016 now, it's the same problem. We are managing and trying to juggle our households. We're trying to manage our children, multiple responsibilities, high levels of stress. and self-care, lack of self-care, it's the same issue everywhere.
And the environment is changing everywhere. Air quality is always an issue, which we have little, kind of, I guess you'd say, immediate control over. We have little control over, pollution and these kind of things too, which contribute. And then our food supply chain, like you mentioned, too. I know food supply just over the years has just become less nutritious, generally speaking. So it's all the same type of, I think, like you'd say, environmental triggers, which we think a lot of autoimmune can even be viral triggered. So I don't want to deep dive too much because that could probably waylay us into a deep conversation, but maybe have you back sometime too for that. But if I've been learning a lot more about that they do believe that virus can be potentially, and I'm not talking about the current virus, but like viral illness in general can be a trigger for autoimmune. They believe that, right?
So there is a component of that, because at the heart of autoimmune illness lies immune dysregulation. So anything that affects the immune system, the way I explain it, I think I explain it to my clients with an analogy, because it helps them to understand what's happening in their body. And the way I say it is, I use the country of India, but you can actually use any country. So I said that if your immune system is under attack, whether it's the foods that you're eating, whether it's some physiological stress or anything, that's something that is triggering your immune attack. And you're trying to, so I talk them about Northern India. So, suppose all your police forces and everything is trying to protect the border at the north, then you might have some threats coming in from the south of the country, right? And and if there's an ongoing viral load, if there is a simmering infection, and this has been going on for a very long time, then that creates a huge problem down, over a period of time. None of this happens overnight, because our immune systems and our body is extremely resilient, right? I think that's the first message I give to my clients. That's where I actually start, even before I talk about immune dysregulation and weak immune system and all. So I think the first message, but you're right. So coming back to the virus, that has a role to play in this. So anything and everything that has a role to play, we sort of work around it, but we again start at the foundation. And usually we start with 3 things, because that's at the crux of it all: food, toxins, and stress.
Yes, and you can clear these chronic smoldering, whether they're virus or some other kind of invader, or maybe too much of one bacteria. That's another thought with the whole gut,
another one.
That you can correct this. It takes time. It can sometimes often take a lot of a lot of moments of don't eat this, even though you're but I think you begin to learn new habits, and this is where also working with someone or being able to be a part of a community of people that are moving towards the same goal can be very helpful, because there are a lot of things stacked against many of us every day out there, because a lot of the things that are super convenient to have are just not serving our bodies or our minds. And the way we eat affects our mind, and that's a whole thing too. So if you were, I know that I don't want to, I know we were going to try to keep this at a good length, and you have to run and get to the airport too, but I'm so excited that you were on today. And I think we'll all be looking forward to your podcast, but I hope you'll come back and maybe be able to expand a little bit more on, maybe with even some specific, patient, clients that you've seen that you have, kind of some great, we could do some great examples and that kind of thing. I'd love for you to be back. But before we kind of wrap up, and I know that people would want to maybe connect with you more, and if they wanted to do that, we'll put in the show notes. I know you have a website. We'll put the link to, do you have some social media that they could connect with you there?
Yes. Yeah, so my website you have, which is aninditarungta.com, and my Instagram handle is @Anindita Rungta.
Okay, great.
And these are the main places. And I also have a Facebook page. And as you mentioned, there's a podcast coming up soon.
Yeah, and maybe we'll link
Focusing
your
on to-
Facebook page to this, because that'll
Yes.
be an easy way for us,
Yes.
for them to get to you as well. But I wanted to see if you could leave us with, if you just had a couple, I know you gave us a little window of a couple tips, but if you were to give someone who's maybe, let's say someone is listening to this and they've been struggling with maybe a thyroid condition that seems to be okay with, or their doctors are telling them it's pretty regulated with medication, but they still, the common thing I hear is I still feel tired. I still feel like, my hair is falling, whatever it might be. I just don't feel like me as much. Other than, obviously, perhaps seeking some help too, what would you recommend that they could begin doing immediately each day to try to empower themselves a little bit better?
I think one area that I mentioned that all women have in common, and I see that all across the world, is that many of us struggle with taking care of ourselves and feeling that, and I think, honestly, this goes much deeper. So I'm just sort of trying to put one thing, and I'll tell you what the practical aspect is to just put yourself, prioritize your health. I think that's where it all starts. Once you start prioritizing your health, by which I, it means different things for different people. So for me, it might mean taking out time to exercise, every other day. For me, it also means read every day. I am an avid reader. So it looks different for different people, but these small things add up. So it's not about only the thyroid condition or this condition or lupus or whatever else you might have. You can pretty much do small things which gather momentum, and it can start. And when you start prioritizing that, then you can start prioritizing your sleep. So you go to bed half an hour maybe earlier. Simple things, very, very simple things. You can prioritize sitting down and eating your food. Okay, because we talk so much about the more exotic stuff that I think some of the very basic things get left out, which are equally important. So whether it's your eating hygiene, whether it's your sleep hygiene, whether it's your self-care routine, whether it's moving your body, not going to the gym, but just moving your body. I think you can start there. You can take these small steps, which are completely doable, because all of us have at least 5 minutes in a day to do this, to start off with. Maybe it's mindfulness, maybe it's sitting with a cup of tea. That's my favorite meditation, just sitting with a cup of tea or coffee. I take my clients through all this. Yeah, and that's where you start.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. It's been really a pleasure. I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and that now hopefully we'll have you back though too.
Yes, thank you so much, Jenn, for having me. And I look forward to being back here.